If you've, been feeling overwhelmed lately, maybe your inbox is an absolute disaster zone, or you are just endlessly doom scrolling.
No, no.
Or maybe just the general hum of anxiety is keeping you up at night. You have probably been handed the exact same piece of universal advice over and over again.
Just take a breath.
Right. Just take a breath, go meditate. It has basically become the default prescription for the chaos of modern life.
It really has. We treat it like a generic spiritual painkiller.
Yeah.
The cultural assumption out there is that if you can just carve out 20 minutes to sit on a cushion and close your eyes, the messy reality of your life will somehow just fade into this pristine, enlightened silence.
Yeah, exactly. It's marketed as the ultimate escape hatch from stress.
Right.
But the source material we are pulling apart in today's deep dive looks at that exact instinct, that urge to just sit down and zen out, and throws a massive wrench right into it.
A really big wrench.
Yeah. So we are looking at a text from 2011 by an author named Su Feng, and we're working from a translation edited by King. The piece has this incredibly blunt English title. It's called "What's the Point of Meditating?"
Which is such a great hook.
It is. And the premise is just this radical reality check. The author essentially asks, why are you trying to achieve spiritual enlightenment when your actual day-to-day life is a complete disaster?
Right. He lays out this framework of 8 strict, non-negotiable prerequisites. Things that absolutely must be met before a person even attempts to meditate.
And to be clear, he isn't attacking the concept of meditation itself, right?
No, not at all.
Mm.
And in fact, the text openly acknowledges why people are drawn to it. I mean, it mentions the belief that it calms the mind, helps develop extraordinary abilities, and can even lead to attaining Buddhahood.
So the end goal is valid.
Exactly. The critique is entirely focused on the timing and, well, the readiness of the practitioner.
Okay, let's unpack this, because it's
Yeah.
basically a direct assault on the idea of using spirituality as a shield.
Well, for sure.
The philosophy here argues that sitting down to meditate when your worldly affairs are in shambles is, well, it's like ignoring a fire in your kitchen.
Yeah.
Because you are too busy picking out the perfect, calming shade of paint for your living room walls.
That is a perfect way to put it. You can't focus on the ethereal when the structural integrity of your survival is just collapsing all around you.
Right. So let's get into how Xu Feng actually structures this, because the first few prerequisites he lists are aggressively practical.
They really are. They act as these heavy, earthly anchors.
So the text forces the reader to confront their immediate physical reality before they're even permitted to look inward. What is the very first question he asks?
The very first question is whether the practitioner has solved the basic problems of survival.
Meaning?
That include food, clothing, shelter, and transportation. But it also explicitly includes coming to terms with the realities of birth, aging, illness, and death.
Wow. Okay, that escalated quickly. We go from paying rent and buying groceries straight to confronting our own mortality.
Yeah, it's a lot for step 1.
Why bundle those things together as the very first prerequisite?
Because they all represent our fundamental biological vulnerability. I mean, think about it. If you don't have a safe place to sleep, or if you are completely consumed by the fear of an impending medical diagnosis,
Your brain is going to panic.
exactly, your biological imperatives are going to dominate your consciousness. The text argues that if you haven't secured your basic survival and made peace with the fact that your physical body will age and die, closing your eyes on meditation cushion doesn't lead to spiritual transcendence.
You're just sitting there stressing out.
Right. You'll just sit there quietly agonizing over your grocery bills or your health.
You are basically just trapping yourself in a quiet room with your anxiety.
Exactly.
Which leads perfectly into the second prerequisite. And I have to admit, seeing this on a list about spiritual enlightenment genuinely stopped me in my tracks.
It's surprising, right?
Extremely. So Xu Feng asks, have you resolved your sexual frustration or your thirst? I mean, it is really jarring to see sexual frustration listed right next to attaining Buddhahood. Modern wellness culture usually keeps those things in completely separate, very sanitized boxes.
We really do tend to compartmentalize. We view spirituality as something elevated and pure, while treating human biology as something entirely separate, or, even shameful sometimes.
Right, like something to be ignored.
But Xu Feng connects the two by recognizing sexual drive as one of the most powerful, hardwired biological imperatives a human possesses.
So if you're ignoring it,
If that drive is entirely unresolved, if it is acting as a constant underlying source of tension, what the text translates as first, It will fundamentally disrupt any attempt at mental stillness.
I'm trying to picture what that actually looks like in practice. If someone is like deeply frustrated but trying to force themselves into a serene meditative state, I mean, they aren't actually peaceful.
No, not at all.
They're just fighting a war in their own head.
Think of it like trying to hold a fully inflated beach ball underwater.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right. You can sit on the surface and pretend you are completely relaxed, smiling at everyone.
Hmm.
But beneath the water, you are expending a massive amount of continuous, exhausting energy just trying to suppress a basic law of physics.
And eventually it's going to pop up and hit you in the face.
Exactly. Now, the text is not demanding the complete eradication of biological drives. Not at all. But rather the resolution of the frustration, the thirst.
So the underlying tension must be addressed so it no longer demands your energy.
Right. Your foundational existence has to be stable, so your spiritual practice doesn't just evolve into an exercise in repression.
That makes a lot of sense. You can't transcend the body if you are constantly fighting the body.
Precisely.
And that grounded, practical approach carries right over into the third question. Have you fulfilled your family duties?
This is a big one.
Yeah. Specifically, the text asks if you have supported your parents and if you have raised and educated your children. And if you haven't, Shuifeng says you have absolutely no business meditating.
Which completely upends the classic romanticized stereotype of the solitary spiritual seeker.
Right, like the guy on the mountain.
Yeah, we have this cultural image of the monk who abandons society, leaves their family behind, and retreats to a cave in the mountains to seek personal enlightenment. But Zhuo Feng places social and familial obligation at the absolute forefront of spiritual readiness.
It strips away the excuse of the whole spiritual journey thing.
It really does.
Like, you can't claim you are ascending to a higher plane of universal love if you are dodging child support payments or, ignoring your aging mother's phone calls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because your karmic footprint in the world is inherently tied to how you handle your closest relationships.
Right.
You cannot actively cause suffering or neglect the people who are most dependent on you and expect to find true spiritual clarity. The text views those unfulfilled duties as tethers.
Tethers, like tying you down.
Yes. If you owe a debt of care to your parents or your children, that obligation anchors you to the physical and social world.
So, if you're listening to this right now and you've got an hour blocked off on your calendar later today to meditate, Shuifeng is basically asking you to do a brutal audit first.
A very brutal audit.
Can you feed yourself? Are you terrified of getting older? Are you ignoring your biological needs? Are you a decent parent and a supportive child?
Yep.
And only when you can answer yes to all of that does the text let you move forward. But this is where the requirements shift, right?
They do. Once you prove you are a functioning human in the physical world, Shuifeng moves the goalposts to your internal world.
Okay, let's talk about that. Because the focus moves entirely from the external realities of biology and society to the internal karmic ledger.
And the prerequisites become significantly more demanding here.
Oh, totally. Let's dig into the mechanics of this internal audit, because the fourth prerequisite is where I really started to argue with the text.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Shuifeng asks, are your mental distresses and worries resolved? Are there still hindrances in your heart? And if the answer is yes, he says, do not meditate. But wait. In Western wellness culture, people meditate specifically to resolve their mental distress.
That's the main marketing pitch.
Exactly. The whole point of downloading a mindfulness app is to calm down when you are worried. Is Shuifeng saying modern psychological therapy is entirely wrong?
Well, he is operating on a completely different paradigm. Western psychology utilizes mindfulness and meditation as coping mechanisms.
Like a tool.
Right. We use them to lower blood pressure, manage panic attacks, navigate daily anxiety. They are tools for symptom management. Shuifeng, however, is defining meditation not as a tool for managing distress, but as a vehicle for ultimate spiritual transcendence.
So he is treating inner peace as the price of admission rather than the reward at the end of the ride.
Precisely. To use Shuifeng's logic, if your heart is full of hindrances and your mind is chaotic with unresolved distress, the act of sitting perfectly still and turning your attention inward is just going to amplify the noise.
Oh, wow.
You aren't meditating, you are simply providing a quiet stage for your anxieties to perform on.
That is so true. I've definitely had meditation sessions where I just stewed about an email for 20 minutes.
We all have. Because you have to do the active, messy relational work of resolving your earthly problems and your psychological baggage first.
And that requires taking real action in the physical world.
Yes.
You can't just breathe away a deeply rooted conflict with a coworker. or a profound sense of personal guilt. You actually have to go have the hard conversation or make the apology.
The text refers to this later as clearing the weeds in your soul.
The weeds in your soul. I like that.
Yeah, and weeds don't disappear because you ignore them or try to think positively about them. They have to be actively pulled out by the roots.
Right.
And so Feng pushes this requirement of active engagement even further with the next set of questions. He moves from psychological distress into deep karmic territory.
This is where it gets really heavy.
It does. Yes. Are your debts from past lives fully repaid? And have you accumulated enough merit to go to heaven in your next life?
Which introduces an incredibly complex theological layer. I mean, how does someone repay past life debts or accumulate merit just to earn the right to meditate?
Well, it demands an active engagement with the world that completely contradicts the passive nature of just sitting on a cushion. You cannot repay a karmic debt by isolating yourself in a silent room.
Obviously not.
Debts are paid and merit is accumulated through action, through service, ethical living, and actual kindness toward others.
It feels like showing up to a gym and being told by the trainer that you aren't allowed to use any of the equipment until you already have a six-pack and can run a marathon.
That's hilarious. But honestly, that analogy captures the rigor of this philosophy perfectly.
The real workout, according to this text, isn't the meditation itself, is it?
No, it's the ethical, responsible life you live out in the world. Shuang is challenging the practitioner to ask themselves if they are using spiritual practices as a substitute for taking moral action.
Like, are you meditating just to feel good about yourself while avoiding the difficult work of balancing your cosmic scales?
Exactly. Only when that ledger is balanced and the soul is cleared of its weeds is the mind actually quiet enough to engage in true meditation.
Which finally brings us to the eighth and final prerequisite. So we have moved from physical survival through biological drives and family duties, navigated our psychological distress, and theoretically paid off all our past life karmic debt.
It's a long checklist.
It really is. Now, Shuefeng asks the ultimate question about your spiritual trajectory. He asks, do you know where you are going next, and are you familiar with that place?
This is a question of profound intentionality. If you sit down to meditate, having cleared all earthly and karmic obstacles, what is your actual aim? What is the destination?
And to drive this point home, the text uses a very vivid traditional idiom.
Yes, the blind man.
Right. It states that meditating without having resolved these 8 issues and without knowing your ultimate destination is like a blind man lighting a lamp wasting wax.
It's such a powerful image.
Let's break down the mechanics of that metaphor because it really feels like the thesis statement of the entire piece.
Okay, so consider the physics of a traditional oil or wax lamp. A lamp consumes a finite resource to create light.
Right.
In this metaphor, the wax represents your spiritual energy, your time, and your disciplined focus. Those are limited resources. When you meditate, you are burning that wax to produce spiritual illumination.
But the person lighting the lamp is blind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The blindness represents the practitioner who hasn't fulfilled the prerequisites. If you haven't secured your survival, if your mind is tangled in distress, and if you have absolutely no idea what your spiritual destination is, you are the blind man.
So you can sit in the lotus position, burn incense and strike a singing bowl.
The lamp is lit, the wax is being consumed, but because you lack the foundational eyesight to perceive the path, the light is entirely useless to you. You gain no direction. You simply waste the wax.
That is a devastating critique of performative spirituality.
It really pulls no punches.
Just because you are doing something that looks like a profound spiritual practice doesn't mean you are actually getting anywhere. You are just burning up hours of your life for zero practical or spiritual gain.
Yes.
So, with all that said, does the text ever actually give the reader permission to light the lamp?
It does, but with a very specific conditional payoff. Zhufeng concludes that once and only once a practitioner has perfectly resolved all 8 of these massive issues, they are finally ready to meditate.
Okay.
And the text directs them toward a highly specific practice.
Yeah.
The Lifechanyuan transcendence from the physical body meditation method.
Transcendence from the physical body. I mean, that title alone explains why the first 7 prerequisites are so incredibly demanding.
Look at the literal meaning of that method. The stated goal is transcendence.
Yeah.
Moving beyond the limitations and the gravity of the physical form. You cannot transcend something if you are still hopelessly tangled in it.
It makes me think of a hot air balloon.
Oh, I like that.
If the goal of the meditation is to launch the balloon into the stratosphere, you have to completely untie all the ropes tethering it to the ground.
Right.
If even one rope is still staked into the dirt, like an unpaid financial debt, a neglected child, an unresolved fear of aging, or a lingering karmic imbalance, the balloon isn't going anywhere. You can fire up the burner as much as you want, but you are just wasting fuel.
You're wasting wax. Every single prerequisite Shuifeng list is one of those tethers. The physical body, the biological drives, the societal obligations, the psychological distress. They all exert a gravitational pull on consciousness.
They keep you grounded.
Exactly. The Lifechanyuan method assumes that the practitioner has successfully cut every single one of those ropes through responsible, ethical action in the real world. Only then is the consciousness actually free to elevate.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's bring this back to you, the listener. What is the core takeaway from Xu Feng's rather intimidating framework?
It's a lot to process.
It is, but I think it is the realization that true spiritual practice does not begin on a cushion or in a yoga studio or on a silent retreat. It begins in the messy, unfiltered reality of your everyday life.
Absolutely.
It starts by making sure you are financially stable enough to feed yourself. It starts by taking care of your aging parents and raising your kids with intention. It requires clearing your financial and cosmic debts and doing the grueling emotional labor to pull the literal weeds of resentment and distress out of your own soul.
This text serves as a deeply uncomfortable mirror. Whether you are someone who spends an hour meditating every morning or someone who is entirely skeptical of the wellness industry, Shuifeng provides a rigorous metric for self-evaluation.
Yeah, he demands that we interrogate our own motives.
Exactly. Are we utilizing our self-care routines and spiritual practices to engage more deeply with the world? Or are we using them to build a comfortable wall between ourselves and our actual responsibilities?
If the roof of your house is on fire, you don't sit down in the living room and focus on your breathing. You get up, grab a hose, and put out the fire.
Put out the fire first.
But I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to mull over today. It is the ultimate paradox that this text leaves circling in my brain.
Oh, what is it?
If you actually manage to do what Shu Effing asks, if you perfectly solve all your earthly problems, if you flawlessly fulfill every family duty, if you completely clear your mind of all distress, pay off all your past life debts, and secure your spot in heaven.
Which is a massive if.
Right. But if you do all that and you are already existing in that state of absolute frictionless perfection, what exactly is left for the meditation to actually do?
Well, it frames enlightenment not as the process of fixing yourself, but it's what happens when there is finally nothing left to fix.
Something to think about the next time you consider closing your eyes to escape the mess. Until next time, keep diving deep.